Hello, and welcome to our podcast about artificial intelligence. Today, we'll be discussing how AI is changing the world around us. You can't miss the headlines, right? I mean, AI is suddenly writing essays that, well, you can barely tell aren't human, generating these stunningly realistic images, even crafting entire video clips. It's easy to feel like we've sort of been dropped into a science fiction movie, maybe even a slightly unsettling one.
It is true that those visible, almost magical applications of AI, like the chatbots and the image creators, they really capture the public imagination. But what's truly transformative and maybe more significant in the long run is the quieter revolution happening in areas we might not immediately connect with AI. We're talking about AI tackling incredibly complex problems, things like, finding cures for diseases and inventing entirely new kinds of materials.
And that's where we arrive at what feels like the most overlooked piece of this whole AI puzzle, this incredible potential for AI to generate wealth, like on a massive scale, but also the surprisingly real danger of, well, significant economic disruption. Exactly. This technology that holds so much promise for, unprecedented progress could also kind of unintentionally be setting the stage for a major economic downturn, which would ultimately threaten the very advancements it's making possible. It's a strange loop.
Great. So for this deep dive, we've been focusing on a fascinating YouTube video transcript that really dug into these potential economic pitfalls of the AI revolution. Our goal today is really to explore those potential dangers, the ones that might be lurking just beneath the surface of all the excitement and, the innovation we see.
So maybe to start, let's acknowledge what most of us think of when we hear AI. Tools like ChatGPT, Midjourney for images, Sora for video. They're becoming household names almost. People using them for a huge range of tasks, from doing initial research for projects, summarizing news articles, even analyzing really dense research papers to pull out the key findings. It's powerful stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I've personally found tools like ChatGPT and Perplexity incredibly useful for that initial research stage. And news analysis, too, in my own work. It's like having this super-powered research assistant, right? But as impressive and, yeah, sometimes a little eerie as these large language models actually are, these are the AI systems trained on just massive amounts of text to understand and generate human-like language.
They really represent just the tip of the iceberg, don't they, in terms of AI's potential?
That's exactly it, the tip of the iceberg. What's truly remarkable is the less visible, but maybe more profound impact AI is having in fields like material science. Historically, discovering new materials, for better batteries, more efficient solar panels, maybe new superconductors, that was a very slow process, often taking scientists years, even decades, of painstaking trial and error.
Okay, let's unpack this because this is where it gets really interesting. So now AI is dramatically speeding up that whole process. Think about this. DeepMind recently predicted the properties of over 2.2 million new inorganic materials. Just predicted them. Yeah, and to put that in perspective, the Materials Project, which is a major existing database, previously cataloged only around 50,000 materials.
50,000 versus 2.2 million.
Exactly. That gives you a sense of the sheer scale of acceleration we're talking about. It's mind-boggling.
It really is.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Microsoft's Matter Gen AI is even designed to go beyond just predicting. It's a generative AI, specifically created to discover entirely new materials. What used to require entire research teams years of work. Well, now it can potentially be achieved in a matter of weeks, maybe even days. The implications for developing better batteries, faster electronics, cleaner energy solutions, they're just enormous.
Exactly. And it's not just theoretical lab work anymore, is it? I read about a recent collaboration between AI researchers and Microsoft. It actually led to the discovery of materials that could be used to prototype batteries with up to 70% less lithium.
70% less lithium.
Yeah. That's a potentially game-changing development. It could have a massive impact on the next generation of consumer tech, from our phones to electric vehicles.
It really could. Which raises an important question. What other fundamental shifts are we seeing thanks to AI? Medicine is another really compelling example. AI is being applied in areas like earlier and more accurate cancer detection, developing new drugs at an unprecedented pace, and even assisting in complex genetic editing.
Yeah, I saw that companies like NewMedii are already leveraging AI to identify potential new treatments for diseases that have been incredibly difficult to tackle, like cystic fibrosis and sickle cell anemia. And we've seen studies highlighting how AI has the potential to significantly improve the accuracy of early cancer diagnoses. That alone could ultimately save millions of lives.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating here is how AI can simulate the incredibly complex interactions of drugs within the human body. It's like running virtual clinical trials almost.
Mm.
This not only saves billions, literally billions, in traditional research and development costs, but it can also significantly speed up the time it takes for promising new treatments to actually become available to patients who desperately need them.
And the ripple effects extend far beyond just scientific research, right?
Yeah.
We're seeing AI impact product development in all sorts of industries. Like PepsiCo, for example, used AI to reportedly cut their product development cycles by a staggering 40%. 40%!
Wow.
And we're also seeing significant applications in climate modeling, helping us better understand and predict climate change, and in optimizing complex supply chains, like BMW using AI to identify and eliminate costly inefficiencies in their manufacturing processes. It all sounds overwhelmingly positive at first glance, doesn't it? Just progress, progress, progress.
It does indeed seem like a wave of just unmitigated progress. Better products, faster discovery, more efficiency. But this is where the narrative takes a really critical turn, and we need to consider the potential downsides of this rapid technological advancement. The flip side, if you will.
Because here's where it gets really interesting, maybe a bit worrying. That same AI that's driving all this incredible innovation, the AI that's helping us discover new materials and fight diseases, is also capable of replacing human workers, and at an unprecedented and, well, accelerating rate.
Exactly. Goldman Sachs, a major player in global finance, they estimate that as many as 300 million full-time jobs around the world could potentially be replaced by AI in the coming years. 300 million. That's not some futuristic fantasy. It's a serious projection from a leading financial institution.
And we're already seeing the beginnings of this across various sectors, aren't we? Think about customer service AI-powered chatbots handling more and more interactions. In banking, AI is automating tasks previously done by human analysts. Logistics, finance, they're all seeing significant automation.
Yeah, and there was that survey from Resume Builder last year. It revealed that 37% of companies using AI had already laid off employees as a direct result, with a concerning 44% planning to do so in 2024. That's nearly half.
Wow, that's significant.
And what's really important to understand is that this isn't limited to traditionally manual or, let's say, lower-skilled jobs. Even creative industries are being impacted. AI tools are now capable of writing marketing copy, generating visuals for ad campaigns, even drafting initial scripts for television shows.
It hits pretty close to home for me, actually. Earlier in my career, I worked in UI and graphic design, making a decent living using tools like Photoshop. Now you have AI that, with just a simple text prompt and maybe some source images, can isolate a subject in a photo, move it to a completely different background, seamlessly blend the lighting, and create a professional-looking YouTube thumbnail in seconds. Literally seconds.
Right.
And while human creativity and oversight are still valuable, definitely, the sheer productivity increase means you just need fewer people to accomplish the same amount of work.
Which, on the surface, seems like progress, doesn't it? We can achieve more with less effort, more efficiency. But this increase in efficiency leads to a really fundamental and potentially unsettling question. If AI automation leads to more and more people being out of work, who will actually be able to afford the products and services that these increasingly efficient companies are producing?
That's the core of the paradox we're grappling with, isn't it? Because the basic assumption in our economic models has long been that increased productivity ultimately leads to widespread prosperity, higher standard of living for everyone.
Right, that's the textbook theory. But if AI automates jobs on a massive scale, without a corresponding mechanism for income replacement, or the creation of enough new, equally accessible jobs, then we could very well see a significant collapse in overall consumer demand. This is the part of the AI conversation that often gets overshadowed by the excitement about the shiny new tech itself.
Let's consider some concrete examples to make this more tangible. Take a company like Tesla. They are no longer just focused on building electric vehicles, right? They are heavily investing in artificial intelligence and robotics. Elon Musk himself has suggested that Tesla's long-term value will be more closely tied to their Optimus humanoid robot project than to their cars.
That's right. And if we connect this to the bigger financial picture, Tesla's stock market valuation already reflects a significant belief in the future revenue potential of their AI and robotics initiatives. Analysts are projecting potentially trillions with a T of dollars in future earnings from products that, as you pointed out, don't even fully exist yet in a consumer-ready form.
But the central question keeps coming back, doesn't it? Who will be there to purchase these cars or these robots or any of the other goods and services being produced? If widespread automation leads to significant and sustained unemployment, it creates this potentially dangerous feedback loop within the economy.
This type of paradox, where increased efficiency doesn't necessarily lead to the expected positive outcome, isn't entirely new, actually. There's a concept in economics known as the Jevons paradox. It essentially states that when technological advancements make a resource more efficient to use, that efficiency can actually lead to an increase in the overall consumption of that resource, not a decrease.
Right. The classic example is the steam engine in the 19th century. As steam engines got better at burning coal, more efficient, the cost of using them went down, which led to people finding even more ways to use them, and ultimately, overall coal consumption actually skyrocketed.
Exactly. Efficiency didn't solve the resource problem. In some ways, it arguably made it bigger.
So how does that relate to AI?
Well, what's potentially concerning with AI is that we might be seeing the reverse of the Jevons paradox, or maybe a mutated version of it. Greater efficiency driven by AI could lead to significant job losses, which in turn could lead to decreased consumer spending power. Even as companies were able to produce more goods and services at lower costs, this is what some are starting to call the AI economic paradox.
And this isn't just like a theoretical concern for the distant future. We're already starting to see some early indicators of this potential disconnect, aren't we?
We are. Companies are implementing automation to reduce their labor costs, which looks great on their bottom line, boosts profits, but we're not necessarily seeing a corresponding surge in overall consumer demand that would kind of justify that increased efficiency and production capacity.
Right. Imagine this playing out on a larger scale. Like AI helps a biotech company make a revolutionary breakthrough, develop a new drug that could save millions of lives.
Yeah.
Amazing, right?
Amazing, yes.
But if a significant portion of the population is unemployed and lacks adequate healthcare coverage because of that unemployment, they might not be able to afford that life-saving treatment.
Or consider AI inventing a super efficient battery. Cheaper, longer lasting power for electric vehicles. Sounds great. But if widespread job losses mean fewer people can afford to buy new cars in the first place, the demand for those advanced batteries might just stall. It might not materialize as expected.
Or picture retailers using AI to perfectly optimize their supply chains, their logistics, dramatically reducing their need for warehouse staff, delivery drivers,
Yeah.
only to see their overall revenues decline because those same workers, who are now their former employees, no longer have the income to be their customers.
It becomes a self-defeating cycle.
Exactly. It's not just about isolated job losses in specific sectors. It's about the potential for the fundamental structure of the economy to become unbalanced, unstable even. Our current economic system relies on this key assumption. Automation leads to lower prices lead to increased purchasing, and that ultimately benefits everyone.
But that equation only holds if people still have a reliable source of income. If AI displaces human labor on such a massive scale that it significantly reduces overall income levels, without some kind of compensating mechanism, then the entire system, which is built on consumer demand, could begin to unravel in really unpredictable ways.
Okay, now, to be fair, there's a strong counter-argument to this more pessimistic outlook. Many argue that while AI will undoubtedly displace some jobs, it will also create entirely new categories of jobs, things we can't even fully imagine yet.
Right.
And there's some historical precedent for this kind of technological disruption leading to net job growth over the long term. We've seen it before.
That's absolutely right. That's the optimistic view, and there's data to support it, potentially. The World Economic Forum, for example, they estimate that while AI and automation could lead to the displacement of around 85 million jobs by 2025, they also project the creation of 97 million new roles in emerging fields like data science, AI safety, robotics, things like that. So a net gain on paper.
97 million new roles. That sounds promising.
And even the Goldman Sachs report we mentioned earlier, the one predicting 300 million job losses. While it highlighted that potential for displacement, it also considered the longer-term possibilities for economic growth.
Okay, let's delve a bit deeper into that longer-term analysis. What did they actually envision in terms of the overall economic impact?
Well, their longer-term analysis actually projects a potential 7% increase in global GDP and a significant 1.5 percentage point rise in overall productivity over a 10-year period, as a direct result of the widespread adoption and implementation of AI technologies.
A 7% GDP boost. That certainly sounds like a positive outlook on the surface. Suggests the economic benefits of AI could ultimately outweigh the job losses.
It does, but, and this is a big but, the crucial caveat that often gets overlooked with these kinds of projections is the skills gap. Many of these new AI-related jobs require highly specialized skills and training. And historically, well, when economies have undergone massive technological transformations, it hasn't always been a smooth or equitable transition for the existing workforce. People don't always have the skills or the resources, or even just the opportunity to easily and quickly adapt to entirely new career paths.
That's a really critical point. Can you give us a historical example, maybe, to illustrate that challenge?
Sure. Consider the significant decline in U.S. manufacturing jobs between, say, 2000 and 2010. During that period, 5.6 million manufacturing jobs were lost, largely due to automation and globalization. By 2010, studies showed that only around 39% less than half of those displaced workers had managed to find new employment. And a significant portion of those who did find work were earning less in their new roles than they had in their previous manufacturing jobs.
So finding a job wasn't the same as finding an equivalent job.
Exactly. It highlights the difficulty of retraining and reemploying a large segment of the workforce with comparable wages and opportunities. It's a tough transition.
And it's not as though these new high-tech AI jobs are just, appearing magically in every community across the country or the globe.
No, definitely not. The growth in AI-related jobs is currently heavily concentrated in major metropolitan areas that already have strong tech sectors. Places like the San Francisco Bay Area, Boston, Shenzhen, and China. This leaves many rural and more traditional industrial communities kind of behind. Without easy access to the necessary retraining programs or the economic opportunities that these new jobs represent.
So there's a geographic mismatch.
A huge geographic mismatch
Yeah.
between where the jobs are being lost and where the new ones are being created. That's a significant hurdle.
And even when new jobs are created in these tech hubs, the very nature of work itself might be undergoing a fundamental shift, right?
Yeah, that's another interesting point to consider. Many of these new jobs might primarily involve supervising or, fine-tuning the AI systems that are actually performing the core tasks. For example, a single AI manager might oversee a complex automated process that previously required, say, a team of 50 human workers.
Oh, okay.
So while technically a new job has been created, the AI manager role, the net effect on overall employment might still be a significant reduction. One replaces 50.
Right. That makes sense. And we also can't forget the very human element of this. Not everyone wants to, or even has the aptitude or opportunity to, retrain for a career in a highly technical field like machine learning or AI safety.
No, absolutely not.
It's difficult to imagine, say, a 58-year-old factory worker in Ohio who has spent their entire career on an assembly line easily transitioning into becoming a software engineer specializing in AI ethics.
It's not realistic for everyone. And this raises an important question about the timeline, the pace of change. Even if new jobs do eventually emerge in sufficient numbers, the pace at which these jobs are created and the time it takes for the displaced workforce to acquire the necessary skills might not align with the much more rapid pace of job displacement driven by AI automation.
So there's a timing mismatch, too.
Exactly. This mismatch could lead to really prolonged periods of unemployment and economic hardship for many people, even if the long-term picture eventually looks brighter on paper.
So what we're really talking about here isn't just a shift in the labor market. It has much broader and potentially significant social and political ramifications, doesn't it?
Absolutely. If we fail to proactively address this potential imbalance between job displacement and job creation, we risk exacerbating existing societal inequalities, pushing more individuals and families into poverty, and potentially fueling social unrest and political instability. It's a serious risk.
We've certainly seen historical examples of how poorly managed economic shocks can have long-lasting negative consequences. The 2008 financial crisis, for instance, led to years of economic stagnation for many and a significant erosion of public trust in institutions. We're still feeling some effects of that.
We are. And if we connect this to more recent trends, the COVID-19 pandemic actually acted as an accelerant for automation. It pushed companies across various sectors, particularly in areas like logistics, food service, retail, to adopt automation technologies faster, leading to permanent job losses for many workers.
Right, contactless everything.
Exactly. AI is now poised to further accelerate this trend of automation across an even wider range of industries. It's like pouring fuel on that fire.
It paints a somewhat worrying picture of the potential societal costs associated with this rapid technological change. You mentioned a study earlier that looked at some of the human consequences of increased automation.
Yes. There was a 2022 study published in the journal Demography. It found a statistically significant link between increased automation in U.S. industries, looking at the period between 1993 and 2007, and subsequent rises in rates of overdose deaths, suicides, homicides, and even cardiovascular mortality in those affected areas.
Wow, so we're talking about literal life and death consequences.
Yes, these aren't just abstract economic statistics. They represent very real and tragic human costs associated with economic disruption and job displacement. It's sobering.
So the takeaway seems to be that widespread automation, without adequate social and economic safeguards in place, doesn't just negatively impact those who lose their jobs directly. It can actually weaken the entire fabric of the economy and society.
Precisely. When large segments of the population experience job loss and income reduction, overall consumer spending inevitably drops. That's just basic economics, which in turn can slow down innovation and broader economic growth. Businesses have less incentive to invest if demand is weak. This also leads to lower tax revenues for governments, making it much more difficult to fund essential social programs and support those who are most affected by the changes.
Creating kind of downward spiral.
Exactly. It creates a self-reinforcing negative cycle that can be incredibly challenging to break once it gets going.
And what's particularly concerning, or maybe frustrating, is that the companies and individuals who are driving this technological transformation often don't have a direct financial incentive to slow down
No, quite the opposite sometimes.
or to fully account for these broader societal costs.
That's right. What's interesting to observe is that, in many ways, the market tends to reward companies for increasing efficiency through automation. It often leads to higher stock valuations, bigger profits in the short term. Even if this contributes to wider economic instability and job losses across the economy as a whole, the incentives are misaligned, you could say.
So without some form of intervention or maybe a significant shift in how we think about the relationship between technology, work, and economic well-being, we could be heading towards a future characterized by incredible technological advancements happening alongside, paradoxically, declining overall prosperity and increasing social challenges.
Which raises the really critical question. What, if anything, can be done? How do we mitigate these potential negative consequences? There are various ideas being discussed, some of which are quite radical, definitely generate significant debate, but we need to be having these debates.
Okay, let's dig into some of those potential solutions that are being proposed. One that comes up frequently in discussions about the future of work is Universal Basic Income, UBI.
Right, universal basic income. It's a policy proposal that would essentially provide a regular, unconditional cash payment to all citizens, regardless of their employment status or income level. The core idea is to decouple basic survival needs from traditional employment, to provide a safety net, one that allows people time to maybe retrain for new careers, pursue entrepreneurial ventures, or simply maintain a basic standard of living and dignity in a rapidly changing economic landscape.
And there have even been some real-world pilot programs testing the feasibility and impact of UBI, haven't there? I remember reading about one in Finland.
Yes, exactly. Finland conducted a UBI pilot program. It showed some positive impacts on participants' well-being, their mental health, even spurred some creation of small businesses. However, it's important to note, the pilot didn't demonstrate a significant increase in overall employment rates during the trial period. So this is not a magic bullet for employment itself, but it might help with the transition. It highlights the complexity.
Okay. Another idea I've heard gaining some traction is the concept of an AI dividend. How would that kind of system work?
Yeah, the AI dividend concept. It typically involves implementing some kind of tax or levy on companies that significantly benefit from automation and AI technologies, the ones profiting most directly. The revenue generated from that tax would then be redistributed, perhaps to displaced workers directly, or maybe invested in large-scale retraining and education programs. The goal is to help people adapt to the changing demands of the labor market.
That sounds like it could be a way to directly address some of the income inequality concerns, right? Tying the gains from automation back to the broader population.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
It aims to capture some of the value generated by AI and ensure it doesn't just accrue to capital owners. What other potential solutions are being actively considered?
Well, investing heavily in large-scale professional retraining and education programs seems crucial, doesn't it? Regardless of other policies.
Absolutely. That's widely seen as essential. We need to equip individuals with the skills and knowledge required for the jobs that are emerging in this AI-driven economy, even if those jobs are fundamentally different from the ones they previously held. This requires significant investment, probably a rethinking of our entire education and workforce development systems. Lifelong learning becomes key.
And I've also encountered discussions around the idea of decentralizing the ownership and control of AI technologies themselves. What does that look like?
Yes, that's a fascinating area. It involves exploring alternative models for AI development and deployment. Things like open source AI platforms or AI tools that are co-owned and governed by cooperatives or community organizations rather than just large corporations. The underlying goal there is to prevent the vast economic value generated by AI from becoming concentrated in the hands of a very small number of powerful companies, and to ensure that the benefits, and maybe even the control, are more broadly distributed throughout society.
It sounds like none of these proposed solutions, UBI, AI dividends, retraining, decentralized ownership, none of them are perfect or without their own set of challenges and potential drawbacks.
Definitely not. They all have complexities and trade-offs.
But they do represent a significant shift in thinking, don't they? A move away from simply pursuing maximum efficiency at all costs.
Exactly. It's a move towards designing a more resilient, maybe a more inclusive economic system, one that can better adapt to the rapid pace of technological change and ensure that the benefits of AI are shared more equitably across society rather than just exacerbating existing inequalities.
So we are truly at a critical turning point, it feels like, in how we approach technology and the economy. The decisions we make in the coming years, maybe even right now, will likely determine the long-term impact of AI on our world.
And what's crucial for everyone to understand, I think, is that while the flashy demonstrations of AI, the image generators, the chatbots might capture our attention, the most profound and potentially transformative advancements, the ones in medicine, energy, basic scientific research, they risk being overshadowed by the immediate focus on short-term profit motives and the potential for economic disruption if we don't proceed thoughtfully.
Yeah, the real danger isn't necessarily AI becoming some kind of, malevolent superintelligence like in the
Right,
movies,
the Skynet scenario.
but rather us as a society using this incredibly powerful technology so recklessly, or maybe just without sufficient foresight, that we inadvertently damage the very economic and social systems that allow innovation and progress to flourish in the first place. We could shoot ourselves in the foot, essentially.
That's a good way to put it. AI has this incredible potential to help us solve some of the most pressing challenges facing humanity: disease, climate change, resource scarcity.
Yeah.
But that potential can only be fully realized if we proactively address this fundamental AI paradox. The risk that the very technology designed to improve our lives could inadvertently lead to widespread economic hardship and societal instability if not managed carefully and inclusively.
So turning to you, our listeners, and you, what do you think? Are you using AI tools in your daily life already? How? Do you believe that in the long run, AI will be a net positive or a net negative force for society? As we've explored in this deep dive, this is an incredibly complex issue. There are no easy answers, clearly.
No easy answers at all.
And it's a conversation that will undoubtedly continue to evolve as the technology itself develops further.
It's a conversation that we all really need to be a part of.
Thank you for joining us on this episode about the future of artificial intelligence. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and learned something new. See you next time.